York County is so much more than just a stop for gas on I-80. 17 County is filled with unique individuals with unique stories just waiting to be told. Welcome to the 17 County Podcast with your host, Emily Perry.
This is 17 County Podcast. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and listen. This helps our podcast grow, and we thank you for your continued support. We would also like to take the time to thank our York County Development Corporation members, AgriProducts, Cornerstone Bank, Nebraska Public Power District, and Central Valley Ag. Without these great members, we wouldn't be able to focus on the growth and development of York County here at the YCDC. So thank you. Let's get to the podcast.
Today we have Jordan Klute joining us. Among other things, Jordan is the President of Klute Incorporated here in 17 County, Nebraska. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about you. So are you originally from the area?
Yep, so I'm originally from Bradshaw, and I went to Bradshaw before it consolidated, and then I went to Heartland when I was a freshman when it consolidated, so I graduated in the area, yep.
What made you land in York as an adult?
This is complicated. So, so I've got a really complicated situation, which is kind of a fun little tidbit. But I don't actually live here. I live in Omaha, and I commute every day to the plant. It's a weird situation. So my wife is a doctor at UNMC. She's a cancer doctor, and she does a lot of research on GI cancers like rectal cancer or pancreas is a big one. She's on a big initiative that they've got doing pancreas research, and she sees a lot of patients. So when we moved back, we were living in Lincoln, and we were each commuting different directions. And then we had our second kid, and she would get home and just be frazzled because she had him in the car for 50 minutes each way, just listening to him scream and spray yogurt pouches all over the car. And so I drove by the York airport, and I was like, why haven't I ever looked at flying? And so I took flying lessons, and I fly from Millard Airport out here as much as I can when the plane is working. It's an old plane, and it's broke half the time. Wow. But so I would definitely move out here if circumstances allowed. I think the education that my kids could get out here would be great, and it's just such a more quiet, peaceful experience out here, not dealing with the traffic and the people. Yeah, I bet. But I think to get to your question of how did I come back here or whatever, so we got my parents, at the time the business was growing, but they needed my experience and my boost, so I came back and helped out, and we can talk about that more later if we get into that side. So
yeah, for sure. So I guess how all did you get involved with it? Where did that all start?
Well, so our business, Klute Incorporated, is just our last name, right? So my grandpa started it back in 1961, and so I'm the third generation, and he started it just doing farm and ag repair in Bradshaw, and it grew, and they got up to probably 10 employees or 15 employees, somewhere in that range. But they were kind of tied to the ag economy. So at one time back in the late 90s, the ag economy wasn't doing very good. And my dad got the opportunity to do a small steel project for a customer that was working with some utilities. And it was my uncle actually or my dad's cousin, I guess you'd say. But the project went well, and they just kept ordering stuff. And so we just kept growing, and they kept doing more and more steel. And for those who don't know, so then we moved from the plant or the little building, the building in Bradshaw that we were at, to the highway in Bradshaw. So that was the first move. And then we moved from that building out to the old King of the Road building, which is on Highway 34, about 2 miles east of Bradshaw. So we had this big building, and the growth was there. And so this would be 2012, 2013-ish. My dad and I were sitting down. It was a vacation, one of the few that I think my parents have ever taken. But we're sitting down, and my dad's like, yeah, I think we need to expand and we need to start doing these big polls and we need to put a press brake in, a bunch of expensive equipment, and we're going to need engineering and all this stuff. And I was like, well, let's look at how much some of the competitors do. Let's look at like a Valmont and see how much. And I think their sales were like $2 billion. And we just looked at each other and we're like, well, we should be able to scratch a living. We can probably pick up a couple scraps from what they're doing. So that was like 2013 or whatever. And we just decided I'd come back and start helping out and see how things went. And yeah, we've grown a lot since then. We were probably at maybe 20 employees-ish when I came back, and I think we're up to maybe 125 now and just got a lot of stuff going. Yeah, so that's kind of the backstory of it all.
How do you think Klute grew so fast? Do you think it's just like the need, or?
Yeah, definitely a combination of two things. One, the market demand is definitely there across the country. There's, anytime a data center goes in, we're needed. Anytime they're doing major industrial projects, there's a substation that goes in. Anytime that there's a new power plant, anytime that there's a wind farm or solar farm, we're getting called on to do that. The second thing is we definitely do a good job for our customers. I'm saying this right, I'm biased, but I think that our growth and our sales speak to that, and we just have a lot of great employees. You can't do all of this without like having really good quality work and the product that goes out the door. You can't do it. You can't grow without that, and you can't grow without being having good communication and having good people to do bids and ordering and all that kind of stuff. So I would say it's one, we're in a good spot in the industry and we're kind of hitting it at a good time, and two, just having a lot of good people. But we haven't talked about really what we're doing. So our product is for electric utilities, and we do primarily substation work. So that's the steel that goes inside the substation fence, and you'll see a big transformer sitting in the middle, and you'll see high voltage lines running into it, and we're doing the steel that holds all that equipment up and supports the transmission line as it's coming into the substation fence. We do a little bit of transmission line work, but it's not our focus. Like the transmission line players like a Valmont, who most people would know that name, they're focused on mass producing poles and just doing big orders for 10, 20, 100, 500 mile lines that are going across a state or whatever. So we do get brought in a little bit, but we're doing like a couple poles here and there as needed to connect the sub into an existing T line that might exist. Yeah. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, no. So tell me, what is it like being president of Klute Incorporated? Like, what would you say like some daily or even weekly responsibilities are from someone from a completely outside perspective?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting to see as a business grows, there's a transition that happens. When you're a small business, you kind of are the backup for everything, right? If you've got 10 people and one person's out sick, you got to be the controller. Or you've got to be running the machine when that person's out if it needs. So for a long time, like as a family, we've been the backup to all these different. So I know a lot about a lot of different things in the plant. But it's really transitioning over the last couple of years, especially as I've kind of taken on, to actually having more of a management structure. So a lot of what I have been doing is trying to create our organization in the way that we need it to function properly, so that we've got managers in charge of stuff, they're reporting. And it's basically I am there to help check in, to create the vision for where we're going, help problem solve a lot of stuff as it's happening, because I still have a lot of background in a lot of different little areas, and kind of just be the cheerleader and driving force, right? I mean, you get to the point where there's only so much that one person can do, so you have to be the one that's really guiding that vision. I would say that something that's different about our family, or at least I think it's different, is I'm not like, we don't shy away from getting our hands dirty on stuff, and we're willing to do some of the dirty work, whether it's putting a bid together, or like my dad will be out there working with the welders helping on a project, or my mom's in the accounting. We're doing all that little detailed stuff, and I think that helps as a leader to be willing to step in and do that kind of stuff. So on a daily basis, it's a lot of just bebopping all over the place. I might have a meeting on a new expansion we're doing, followed by a meeting to go over what flex time and PTO is, and followed by a meeting to go over an employee that's having a problem. It's just a constant stream of different things throughout the day. So you have to enjoy. You definitely, as a leader, you got to enjoy rolling with the punches and not knowing what's going to happen that day.
Yeah, a little all over the place. But that can keep it interesting.
It definitely is.
Okay, so can you explain what Klute is to like you were explaining it to a kindergartner?
Okay.
Because a lot of the things you're saying, to be honest, I'm like, okay, I know kind of what that is.
So to the layperson, what we do is welding. We're a big weld shop. We've got, most of our staff is either welders or machine operators, and the machine operators are cutting things out of steel so that the welders can weld stuff together. The rest of our staff would be people that are doing like blueprint type creation for the welders, or engineering to create the structures for the welders. So we are really a structural steel business that is focused on doing electric utility work. We're not that much different than a place that's making big buildings, right? That's making the big beams for buildings. We're just more focused on our little niche area that we've kind of got into.
Okay. So does a business like yours have to have that little niche, or did you guys just find that and you really honed in for it?
Boy, that's a philosophical question that's pretty big. I think that focus is important. I think that having that focus on what you want to be and what you want to do and really excelling at it is important. I think if we tried to do buildings as well, and we see some people ask us to do that kind of stuff, and we just turn it down because we know we cannot be as competitive in that space as we are in our space, and we kind of want to stay to our lane.
Yeah. That's fair. I like that. So getting a little bit back to the beginning, can we chat about some of the growth that has happened over the 60-some years, how it very, very beginning, how it started?
Yeah, so my grandpa was just a welder, and he came from the area, and I think him and my grandma lived in Oregon for a while and were doing berry farming, and he decided to he knew welding, or that was kind of a good trade for him. So he came back and started a little one-man welding shop. And I think, I don't know employee count over the years how many they had, but it never got more than maybe 10, 15, 20 employees was about kind of where they were at. And they really focused on the ag side. So my grandpa was doing a lot of repair work for farmers that had tractors break down, or plows and stuff that needed repaired. I remember my dad doing work on augers for the grain handling equipment to move it up into a bin. And then I remember when I was a kid, so this would be back in the 90s, we did a lot of boxes and hoists. So if you see basically a semi-truck that they've converted to put a box to haul grain on the back of it, and it's got a hoist so they can raise it up and dump the grain out. That was a lot of the work that my dad was doing for quite a long time. And like I said, back in the 90s, then we got into the substation market or into the steel fabrication side was just fortuitous that we got into it, right? I would say that even like I said, when I came back, we were probably at 20 or 25 employees. And then we did end up, my parents sold the truck side, the farm equipment side, and it's still in Bradshaw. A guy named Les owns it and runs it. But they were just getting pulled in two directions, right? They were doing two businesses, and my dad just thought that this was a good business to stay in and keep going on, so that he sold the other side, and we just kept going on the steel fab side.
Okay.
So then here recently, I would say that the growth has been very steady, or getting to the point where it's getting a little bit crazy. It feels like we're growing at 20% a year, but it comes in big spurts, and we'll hire and then we'll be at 60 employees for a while, and then we'll do another expansion and boom, we're up to 90 or something like that. But yeah, for our growth trajectory, so we just opened the new building, which is a big deal. So we'll probably be up into the 200 employee range in the next year or two. I mean, that's our goal, if we can get everybody hired. And really the only thing that's stopping us from being 4 times as big is just continuing to grow at a pace where we're not like getting ahead of ourselves or trying to sell too much or hire too many people where we're not producing good quality out the door.
My name's Don Freeman II. I'm President and CEO of Agri Products in York, Nebraska. We are a manufacturer of quality equipment, grain handling, food storage, food service. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, you can get on our website, or you can contact us at 402-362-5500. Thank you.
It took a couple years to design, so it's been a couple years in the process. But we wanted a building that would be just for doing the big tapered poles, like you see, like the transmission line poles, only it's more inside the substation fence. And so we created a layout that was very specific to what we're doing. And yeah, it's going to allow for good growth. We only built half of the building. It's 85,000 square feet. So we'll put on the other half if we fill it up. And it's allowing us to basically double in size or double our capacity, because we're taking our current building and using that for our equipment supports, the square tube, the wide flange side, and then we'll have this other building for the tapered poles. It's also opening up some room. We've got some big time robotics that are going in, so that's opening that space up to install the robotics, which are actually just about done getting installed. So it's a big expansion from the standpoint that it's allowing us to double in size, and that it's nice that we have the space and the land and all of that to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what parts of the nation does Klute serve?
Good question. So we sell all over the country. We delivered a job earlier in the year to Alaska. Last year, when the wildfires in Hawaii hit, Maui got taken out. We got the call to send emergency steel to Hawaii. We've got projects going to New York State. We got a big project in Arizona right now, California, literally all over the country. And it's pretty cool that we can be competitive shipping all over the country from Nebraska. But yeah, I mean, if you do it right and you're competitive on price, and yeah, we're centrally located, so I guess we can ship everywhere in the country.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah, do you see Klute in the future ever being something that expands nationwide?
Like having multiple locations. We've talked about it. There's some benefit to having multiple sites and locations, but one of the things we always come back to is we're being competitive out in Nebraska. Why have another plant in Virginia or California or whatever when that's just going to create logistical problems of like managing those people? And I think this is kind of slightly off topic, but kind of hitting the point too. Like we have such a good workforce in Nebraska, and we take that for granted. I've lived in a couple other places, and our culture here of being strong workers and doing a good day's work and being independent and caring about the job you do, I just see that in all of our employees, like so much. And maybe we just have a lower tolerance for people that don't do that, but I genuinely think like we have a good culture in this area, and that is so helpful when you're trying to grow a business. Why put your business in, nothing against California, but like why even take that chance putting it someplace else where you don't know what you're going to get when you know that people here work hard and are smart and caring and work together well. I think that there's a lot to say for that.
Yeah, I get what you mean. There's definitely a lot of people here with a very strong work ethic.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So talking a little bit about the workforce, how has the Klute's growth and like rise of employee numbers, how has it affected the community?
Well, you could probably answer the question better than I could. Pulling from an area of probably 40 minutes around the plant. We have people from Grand Island. We have people from wherever. I cannot speak to how we're affecting, or we're definitely paying very competitive wages, or we're trying to. If we're not, somebody needs to tell me so we can fix it. But we want to provide a really good work environment for our employees. We want to be that place that people want to work that are in the county, that, oh yeah, you've got a good job at Klute. That's awesome. We want to be that place. We want to attract and retain all the good people we can. I would say that from a slightly outside perspective, it feels like it's hard in York County just to hire people, right? I mean, my entire life, York County's unemployment has been 1% or something like that, right? There's jobs, there's just tons of jobs. And hearing that some of the stuff on the state level about how many jobs there are and how many employees we need in the state, it's definitely hard. So we're going to continue to have to stay competitive, and hopefully that does make a positive impact on the community in terms of providing good jobs to people in the area and allowing people to have homes and provide a good life for their families.
Yeah, I mean, just the aspect of having that stable job, having the competitive salary, it gives people the opportunity to maybe go out to dinner an extra time a month or something like
That's
that.
Right. That's
Support
right.
those local businesses.
That's right.
So speaking about community, how does Klute involve themselves in the community?
Yeah, we're trying to get more involved at this juncture. We've grown so much. We've been very inward focused, I guess you could say. But I think we've, over the last year, probably started to recognize we need to be more involved. So we're trying to get more involved with the York County development and the state chamber. I'm starting to serve on some of the stuff there, like the council for manufacturers, and I'm doing the Leadership Nebraska, which we can talk about too, which is kind of fun and interesting and has some impact. We're trying to get involved with the local schools. I think we're trying to formulate a plan right now of how do we get more involved with some of the tech, like FFA or what you would know as that kind of tech side in the high school systems, especially on the weld side, where we can maybe help and have expertise in whatever, from an internship or hiring or training or any of that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to push that direction a little bit. And then also on the community colleges, trying to get a little more involved with the Southeast Community College and Northeast Community College and Central Community College, trying to get a little more involved in our internships and our hiring with those places. In terms of some of the nonprofit stuff, I think we're just at the beginning of understanding where we want to go with some of that kind of side of things. Yeah. Right now I feel like we're trying to get involved with the schools a little bit more and some of the development stuff a little bit more. And then probably later on we'll figure some of the nonprofit or where from a money or time standpoint where to put time.
So with involvement in the community, you mentioned you were involved with the leadership. You want to talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
Callie, who used to work for us, was like, hey, you might want to consider Leadership Nebraska. And I was less than a year into being president. I was like, okay, well, that might be kind of nice to get some other perspective from what's going on in the state and some of the other leaders. And I was kind of looking for maybe some of the cohort or peer group stuff to get involved with to just develop myself as a president and kind of know, maybe have some outlets for questions or whatever. So yeah, Leadership Nebraska, basically anybody can apply, and I'd recommend people apply for it because it's a good program. It's kind of through the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, and they take, I don't know if there's a specific number, but there's maybe 35 people from across the state. And when I say across, I mean Scotts Bluff to Omaha to Norfolk. I mean pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's people are from all backgrounds. There's people from OPPD and PPD. There's people from Medica health plans on the health insurance side. There's people from nonprofits that are helping out with daycare and child wellness. And so it's been really cool to see what's going on across the state in different communities and kind of see some of the different struggles people have, but also some of the very similar struggles that we're all going through. Yeah. I would say that definitely there's been some rhymes. You hear housing has been a huge issue across the state, just with quantity of homes. And I think it was somebody in the North Platte Chamber was talking about how the housing stock, like it's like this thing that we have, and he's like, the age of our houses is getting old, and thinking about it in terms of, some of this stuff is going to have to get tore down and rebuilt. We got to think about how many new homes we're putting in a year from a development standpoint. I know YCDC is doing some really cool stuff with trying to keep building homes in the York area.
Yeah, that's a big part.
Another struggle that I hear a lot has been on the child care, just having reliable, affordable child care for pre-K kids and then after school programs. And I wish that I could tell you that I had the magic bullet on that one, but man, the struggle's real, especially, small towns are really struggling because it's hard to find and create a daycare, but even the big cities are struggling. And then health insurance tends to come up, like the cost and the being able to have, not just afford it, but also like the logistics of having a hospital in a rural location and not having the patient population to support some of this stuff and the struggles that our state is dealing with in some of the more rural locations. So really cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff we've seen, like some of the development, like the new field house in Columbus. Some of the just great things that different small, medium communities have been able to do. It's really neat.
Yeah, I bet you can learn a lot through, especially with that like wide of a group of people, expect like location, job. I guess there's probably a lot of different age range too.
Yes. And there's a lot of people we take for granted growing up in rural Nebraska and York. We kind of understand what farming is and we understand like how all this kind of works too. I mean, maybe some people don't, but most of us have an inkling of like what a feedlot is and like what cows are. But there's people from the cities that that's the first time maybe they've ever experienced that or seen a manufacturing plant. Or for me, it was cool. We went into our Gerald Gentleman power plant, and to see like actually how we keep our lights on every day was really neat. So definitely great experience. And again, I'm glad I did it, and hopefully it sparks interest in other potential leaders across the state to get involved and get that exposure.
That is really cool. Do you have, or what are some future goals of Klute?
Oh, that's always the $1 million question. I think our goal is to continue growing at a pace that we can handle. My goal is to continue to transition the business. I'd like my parents, or I hope that they can have a retirement. So there's a transition from a family standpoint. I think one of our biggest goals as a family, again, coming back to the people's perspective, is to provide a place where people want to work and enjoy working and be be a preferred place to work in our county. We really want that. And I think some of the meetings we've been having about how we handle some of the issues that our employees bring up, we really care about trying to solve that stuff. And so I would say that's a key. That's probably one of the biggest goals. The sales growth is not even a goal, because it just happens. Like, we add capacity, we sell capacity, because we do a good job. Like I said, our people do such a good job that it's very easy.
It just comes naturally. That's awesome. Okay, well, time for some hot potato questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a little bit easier than the last few, but one of your answers has sparked a hot potato question. Flying or driving?
Flying or driving? Definitely flying.
Yeah. How did you get into flying?
Like I said, so just out of necessity, right? We kind of needed to figure some stuff out on our personal life, so the flying was a fix to a problem.
And it just worked.
For some people, flying is a hobby and they just enjoy going up and like tootling around in a plane. I'm just like, no, I gotta get there. It's like a mode of transportation. But
interesting.
I will tell you, it is a million times better not to sit on I-80 or drive on I-80 than it is to like fly right over it.
Yeah, I bet.
You're looking at those people stuck behind semis and you're like, this is great.
It's a gnarly crash. I'm just gonna fly over.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. So, breakfast or dinner?
I'm definitely a dinner person.
Yeah?
I'm definitely dinner.
Dinner can be pretty good. Breakfast for dinner?
The problem is I love breakfast. My dad and I are like huge breakfast guys. But on a day, if I ate the breakfast I'd like to eat on a daily basis, it'd be a real problem.
I understand. I'm with you there. Okay, are you an inside or an outside person?
Oh, that's tough. I would say as I've gotten older, I've become more of an outside person.
Yeah?
Yeah, maybe it's just because I spend most of my time in an office or looking at a computer.
Yeah.
But I love to run. I like to go skiing. I love skiing. I love just being active. If I had more time, I'd love gardening. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. It's just finding the time, and now I've got little kids, so I feel like I'm just chasing them around and changing diapers.
Yeah, makes it a little challenging.
That's right.
So are you more spontaneous or are you more of a planner?
Oh, well, I think my wife would say I'm more spontaneous because I don't make plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I just kind of like go with whatever. Yeah, I guess spontaneous would be the word. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you want to be a planner, but life just kind of hits and you're like, okay,
that's right.
Okay, pizza or pasta?
Oh, okay. I'm going to say pizza. I lived in New York City, and yeah, a good slice of pizza is like really tough to pass.
Yeah, you can do really good with both of those, but sometimes...
I do like homemade pasta, though. Like homemade pasta is legit. It's so
Homemade.
good. Yep.
Homemade anything just makes it better.
Yep.
Hot or cold? Anything.
Like food? Or just being hot and
Weather.
cold?
Weather.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely more cold because being a redhead, like the sunburn situation's real.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I avoid.
It gets you.
Yeah. But I don't mind either. I just sunburn. Yeah.
Just stay away from it. That's fair. Sweet or spicy?
Okay, so that's tricky. I am a spicy guy. I love Thai food. It's my favorite food. I can even make it myself. Yeah, like I'm like spicy, like quasi like a person. I'm so spicy that I can probably eat authentic Indian or Thai food because I've burned my taste buds to the ground.
Thai food sounds real good right now.
Got you hungry.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy a mini Snickers bar too, so that's challenging.
That does sound good. Do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Parting words of wisdom. No, I think for those people that are, I want to go back to just building a business because I've done it. I would say two things. One, everything's about systems in a business. You have to have good systems, and systems are people, and systems are not people. They're computer programs, they're all of that. And that's really challenging, and people don't even think about half this stuff. And then I would say the other half of like our success, again, is back to the employees. And we just have so many good ones, from our purchasing manager, Andrea, to our shipping coordinator, Joyce, and our maintenance guy, Brian, who's just kicking butt right now, and our welders who are just producing all the product. Like, that is so important across the board to have good people. And again, it's so hard. You spend so much time as a person managing and building the business. Like, I was thinking about this one day. I bet I've interviewed over 1,000 people.
Wow.
Maybe that's a hot lie. I don't know, but it's a lot.
A lot.
And you have to be good at picking out the good people, and you have to try to pay them well and reward them for what you're doing. And yeah, you can have grand plans, but if you don't have people there to help you, you're never going to succeed.
I like that. Well, thank you for coming in and taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, thank you.
In closing, we would like to once again take the time to thank our members, the people that help us drive change. We would like to thank York State Bank, Henderson State Bank, York General, Meade Lumber Company Incorporated, and York News Times. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Catch you next time.